Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. So today we will be looking at sound recording for digital video production. My name is Tom Strnad. I'm the lead digital artist of the Creator Space, and I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar. So yeah, just before we get started, just want to thank all of our partners in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, we have our library partners, Collingwood Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library, the Blue Mountains Public Library. And what we're going to be demoing today is looking at how to do sound recording alongside our video production. So it's that combo of getting sound going into with the camera, right? So we're going to look at how we can attach sound to the camera and also the double system idea. So really great topic. The equipment that we're going to be featuring it includes the equipment that's available through our library partners. So we have a boom mic, a Rode Wireless Go mic system, these little packs right here. So all this equipment is available through our library partners, which is really, an exciting part of being able to demonstrate these concepts, is to show, what can be used and what's out there. And then at the same time, all of this equipment is fairly low cost. So if you're interested, you can always pick up your own parts of it, but otherwise you can access it through the Blue Mountains Public Library, and it's coming soon to the Wasaga Beach Public Library as well, these microphone and sound recording kits. Perfect. Okay, so let's get right into this fun, exciting topic. Okay, so sound recording for digital video production. An intro to sound recording techniques for digital video. So what exactly does this mean? We're going to have this quick overview of today. At the end, what's great is we're going to have a Q&A. So if you have questions, you can put them in the bottom. You'll see it says ask a question. Just put them in there, and then we'll get to those at the end, and we can ask, go through questions. I'll read them out, and I can answer them as best I can. So overview, we're going to look at digital video and sound recording. We're going to look at direct to camera recording, double system recording. What does that mean? Using a portable sound recorder. Then we're going to look at some of the microphones that are available. So we have the Rode Wireless Go. We have a boom mic called the Superlux PRA 118S. Then we're going to look a bit on, look at the XLR and quarter-inch mic and line inputs. What does that mean? A lot of questions about that we've had, so I just want to go over that. Digital sound settings, best practices. Then we're going to look at what the Slate Overview and how that works. And then we'll look at boom operating best practices, and we'll have a Q&A. So let's get started in the idea. So digital video and sound recording. So when capturing digital video picture, there's often a desire and need to also capture the audio. So we're doing sound and picture. So in this webinar, we're going to look at the different ways to do that, to record sound while recording digital video, also known as production sound. So this isn't necessarily just to record the sound. This is the sound that is to accompany the picture or the video. Here's an interesting quote. It's often said that 50% of any film or video is sound. So really, that's one thing. You really don't want to forget that that's how it ends up working, and you want to make sure that 50% of anything is of a film or video is sound. Think of how important that really is to the video, right? So 50% of any video that you watch or film really is sound. Imagine, if you're watching a horror film, if you turn the sound off, it could be quite comical. That's that whole illustration of that point exactly. So how important sound is, let's not forget that. Okay, so the idea here is, how do we capture great sound right from the beginning into the camera or into recorder? So, direct to camera recording, there's a few types, and we've probably, aware of the first one. So for direct to camera, we have internal microphones. So those can be directly on the camera. They can also be, think of a GoPro or your smartphone, iPad. They have microphones. So those are direct internal microphones. You're not plugging anything else in. So that's a direct one. Then we also have camera microphone inputs. So these are usually different types and sizes. So we have like a 1/8-inch cable. We also have a 1/4 inch, or we might have a XLR as well. So those are the ideas there. Now the Blackmagic Pocket 4K cinema camera has 3 options, and I have it set up right here. So here's the Pocket 4K camera that's available through our library partners. And so what we have here is essentially in the front of the camera, we have, let me just spin this around here. Here we go. So in the front of the camera, we have there's internal microphones, a left and right to the side of the lens mount, right? So that's what's there. Now, what do we have on the side here? You'll notice we have, there's a bit of different things here. So we have, this is just a power cable, but down here, there's a little thing that says audio in. So here we have a mini XLR cable adapter point. Right? I'm just going to try to clear this a little bit better so we can see it. Okay, so that's the mini XLR, so it's just under there, and that pops in there. So we'll look at how that hooks up. Then on the top here, where there's headphones, we also have what is a 1/8 inch input, and it's the same as our headphones. So when you're looking at and I also would recommend this. So using headphones is really a highly recommended aspect of this. So have your own set of headphones. You can plug those in directly to the camera into those inputs. And so this is that 1/8 inch input, and that's what it looks like. So it's a 1/8 inch, just like a headphone jack, and that would be how the Rode wireless mics, for example, they plug right into the microphone diagram, the little microphone picture right up here. So they just plug in there. So headphones here, microphone up there, and otherwise they're the XLR right down there. So again, highly recommend using headphones if you can, so you can actually monitor what you're recording. Okay, so then the Blackmagic, so we have the internal microphones, we have the 1/8 inch input, that can be a line or mic, and we also have the mini XLR input, and that can be a line or mic. And we'll talk about mic and line inputs in a moment, but it also offers 48 phantom power, and that powers the boom mic. And we'll look at what that means shortly as well. So those are the inputs that we have on our Blackmagic Pocket 4K camera. Okay, double system recording. Now this is a concept of using two systems, using a camera and a digital recorder. So what does that mean? So it refers to picture being captured on system 1 and sound being captured on system 2. So system 1 is really the camera itself. So that could be digital video, digital cinema camera. It can also be a film camera. So, Super 8 camera, 16mm camera, 35mm camera, right? So that's just the picture. There's no sound being captured on it. Although you might do that as well with the internal microphone. Sometimes I recommend you can still leave that on just to have kind of a backup guide track, we'll call it. System 2 is then a sound recorder. So that could be a tape recorder. In the past, there's been actual tape being recorded. Then there was digital tape, and now we're really into just digital audio using flash cards, SD cards. And then to synchronize this in editing, there needs to be a sound marker, a clap or a hit, that is seen by the picture camera and heard by the sound recorder. So that's the reason that we end up using these slates. So, you end up having, visually, the slate is open, and then as it claps down, and you just heard the sound of that clap, and you can see visually where it closes as well. So the synchronization point is where it's closed, and then where the microphone has that loud pop. Again, we'll talk about that a bit more, but that's some of the basic ideas there of the clapper board and why we use that and what double system is. So let's look at the Lav microphone. So specifically, we have the Rode Wireless Go's, and I'm just going to have a couple of cables here. I just got to get prepped for us, and let me just get them ready here. Got a 1/8 inch cable, and I'm also just going to fish out a XLR adapter cable. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, just always have a couple of cables. I have them all in my camera cases here, so just getting that all prepped for you guys. Okay, so what is the Rode Wireless Go Lav? So this is a super small mic pack, and there's a receiver. So this is wireless, which is great, so there's no cables. You put this on someone, and then you plug it directly into the camera as a 1/8-inch cable input. So what do these look like? They basically look like this. So we have one is a microphone, and one is the receiver. I'm actually using one now. I have an extra lav mic happening, but what we offer with the library that can be accessed if you're a member of any of the library partners that has the equipment right now, you can take these microphones out, and they're in the portable sound kits. So they're really fun and easy to use. In terms of how do you turn them on, so let me just go over here to this camera here. Okay, so how do we turn these on? So there's a little power button right here. So you just hold that for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and then it powers on and has the lights power on right there. This is the actual microphone. And then this has a clip, and that just clips onto someone's shirt, and you're ready to do an interview. So that's the microphone. Then we also need to turn on the receiver. So again, 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And it says Wireless Go. And then it gives you all the information in terms of what's going on. So right now you can see the level of me talking. So if I'm just like going check, 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 check. And levels are really great for microphone use. Essentially, if you're in the yellow, it's great for hello. If you're in the red, your sound is dead. Okay, so just remember that. If you're hitting the red mark, so check, check, see those red? That means we're distorting. If I'm just in the yellow, that's nice and mellow for hello. But check, check, red is way too loud. So how can we alter that? We have a bit of some leveling we can do right here. So it has a little dB for decibel. And we can cycle that through. And there's 3 settings. And you'll see on the front here, there's a bit of an arrow. So it's all the way down. Check, check, check. So it's a bit lower. Then if I press it once, it goes up a bit. And that's adding a little bit of gain. Check, check, check. And if I go full, it's kind of a maximum gain. And that probably will lead to the distortion that we don't want. So in this case, I'd recommend always starting at the lowest level of this dot area right here, and then increasing your gain as required until you have a good level here. So we don't want it distorting from this source, right? That's the key, the first place to start. We don't want this distorting, because then we got to plug it into the camera where we could have further distortion. Okay, so again, I would just be taking this, right? And then you just clip it on to the shirt. This is how we would end up using a lav mic, and apologies if you're hearing a bit of hits on the other mic. So that could be there. Now that can be covered. It can be a little bit lower, so I could clip it down here where it's out of camera, and the range is pretty good. So we just want it pointing at the person's mouth. That's really the main, objective of the lav mics, is to be able to, point it at the person's mouth. Okay, so now let's just look at how we can hook up and connect this this cable to our receiver. Okay, so how do we do that? So what we do is we take the pack and we put in the 1/8-inch cable right here. And we had there's other webinars you can access through tbmcs.ca, and we go over all the sound recording kits as well. So there's a whole series of videos that are a little bit more in depth on the actual sound recorder units. So today we're going to just really focus on how to record with picture. Okay, so that's that. Now here you'll notice there's a USB-C cable, and those are just, those come with the kits, and those are to charge the packs. So it's a regular USB to USB-C. USB-C would plug in there. You charge these, they charge for about an hour, and they roughly give you 6 to 8 hours of battery life, even more. So at a minimum 6 hours, and oftentimes I've even seen about 10 hours you can get out of these packs. So they're really good wireless and internal batteries, so there's no additional batteries required. Then how do we plug this in? Then our receiver, the other part, has to go into So remember, there's a microphone, there's a headphone. So we don't want to mistake those. There's the headphone icon, there's a microphone icon. So I'm just going to put it right into the microphone, and that's it. Now the other thing we want to think about too is when we're working with these mics is they like to have a line of sight that they can see things and one another, because they're a wireless receiver, and it's using like a Bluetooth wireless type technology. So it needs a little bit of help, that if you're behind a lot of concrete and away from your subject, you might not pick up the best sound. There could be interference. Also, if sometimes these units are turned away from each other, you could have some sound dropout. So just a little bit of advice. Check it out always. Make sure you're hearing it and they're optimized. And there's no reason why you can't see them with your subject as they're talking or in an interview with a documentary and where the camera is. So, it's very rare that things happen, but just be aware that having them not seeing one another could lead to some problems as well, from what I've discovered. Okay, so now let's look at, so we got the camera set up there. Now let's look at what our settings need to be. I'm just going to get this right here. Okay, make sure you guys can see this okay. Okay, so now in terms of the settings, we want to look at how do we do the settings on the actual on the Blackmagic camera, and there's a few settings that we can introduce. So we just go to our menu, which is just the little things right here. Menu. I'm going to go over to audio, and now I can decide what I'm using. So right now it says XLR mic. So in order to get these ones to work, they are going to be the 3.5 millimeter, which is also a 1/8 inch. That means the same thing. And it says line. And we're going to talk about this shortly, but there's line and mic. So what we need to do is, this is definitely a microphone, as we saw that it was a microphone. And then we can decide whether it's left or right. So we can put this as a left or right. It doesn't matter because it's just a mono source, meaning that it's just a single source. So I will oftentimes actually call it what it is, which is a mono. And then here, I'm just going to raise it. Again, as we said, we want to be right and up to the yellow, and we don't want to be hitting red. So I just go check, 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 microphone check, 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 check. And now I'm seeing that, hey, you know what, with the placement of it, I can probably go up in the gain. So I'm just pushing the gain one, and you can see now I'm starting to get into the red. So at this point, I'm going to lower it down to about 80%. Check, check, check. And my maximum there is I'm really hitting the yellow as nice and mellow, not hitting the red, so my sound is not dead. So just remember that. The dead being, it totally distorts and it's unusable. So we don't want that clipping, it's called. Okay, so that's our microphone for the lav mic. And that's as simple as it is. We clip it on the person, attach it to the camera, and then we just set up 3.5 millimeter there. Now I should also note on the Blackmagic, I'll just go back here. Let's go to this side before we do any XLR work. But here's the camera mic. So it's just called camera. It can be stereo, mono. And this is just from the front. I'm talking, check, 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 right into the microphone. So that could be used as well. It's not a bad microphone. If you don't have any other mic available, at least turn that on so you have some sound. Especially, let's say you're filming outside, getting some nature shots. Why not get the ambient sound? If you have no other mics, turn on that camera mic. So it just needs to be on camera. We can also just make sure, because we can have it totally off. It says none. So this represents channel 1 and channel 2. So it's 2 channels that can record on this camera in total. So in this case, we could have our lav mic that we have on right now, and we're going to also attach the boom mic. That's going to be our next part. Okay, so let's continue on. Again, if you have any questions as we go, put them in and we can get to them as we go. Okay, so that's the Rode Wireless Go hooked up to the camera, ready to go. Boom mic, the Superlux PRA118S. It's a boom mic or shotgun mic, and you capture sound by pointing the directional microphone at the desired source. So usually that's a person's mouth as they speak. Now this is a super directional mic that picks up very little off axis. Right, so this is the mic. Again, these are available through our library partners in the sound kit. There's either a boom mic kit or it's in the sound recording kit. Just check. Different kits have different setups. So this is the microphone. So this is a foam screen, and this helps prevent wind getting into the microphone. This is the microphone itself. So you can see very, very long. This is the front that's picking up sound, and this is the, what's off axis is all around it. So it's very, very directional. Probably, I think this one's, it's a 12 inches long. So, it's a that's why it's called a shotgun mic, because it looks kind of like a shotgun. And then you're pointing it at a person, right? So just some of the best practices I'd like to just go over quickly, and we'll do a bit more of a demo, is, having that microphone overhead and pointing it to the mouth, my mouth in this case, is one option. It could also be from the side, but remember, if I'm pointing it down and towards my mouth, then that's the final source. If I'm pointing at an angle, I'm then also getting potentially the computer fan that's next to me, right? So that's really important, is having that directional, pointing it just at the sound you want. And think about moving it if you want to get rid of some unwanted noise, and that can maximize it. The other thing you can do is, if you can't go from above, you can go from below. Same idea. So, just pointing it to the person's mouth, directly at them, not on an angle, because again, you're going to get that off axis, right? So always think about pointing it as close as possible, and making it work. So we'll talk a bit more on some best practices. We'll go into a wider shot, and I'll show you guys how that works too. So this thing requires what's called 48 volt phantom power, and that means it needs power to actually run, right? So it's 48 volt phantom power. This can be provided from the camera or the sound recorder. Now we have some extensive videos on the sound recorder, so I'm not going to get too much into the sound recorder itself today, but more so just on the camera itself, and then the double system of how to use it with the sound recorder. Now you can use this with an XLR cable, and then for the Blackmagic camera, it actually also requires the use of XLR to mini adapter. So let me just point that over there. Let's get this cable out of the way a bit. Okay, so here is where we put our, let me put this power cable up here. There we go, that's better. Here is the XLR down here, and I know it looks really tiny, and that's literally what it is. It's a mini XLR, and it ends up looking like this. So this is the mini XLR cable itself. So it's just like a regular XLR. We're probably all familiar with these XLR cables, microphone cables. So this is the mini to the full XLR. This adapter comes with the Blackmagic kits that you get from the libraries, and that can be used to then plug in to any kind of XLR microphone. In this case, it's designed to go to that Superlux boom mic. Okay. So I always like to, nothing's powered on right now with the inputs. We saw that it just had the camera and the thing, and the lav mic, the 3.5. We want to make sure that we're not already powering it, right? So that's the first step. Now what we're going to do is, we're going to just plug it in here to our camera. And what I always do is, if you go in here, and you kind of spin, and it's going to click. It can only go in one way. And then to remove this, you have to push down on this lever and then pull it out. Okay? It won't come out unless you push down on that lever. That's like a safety so that it can't get yanked out. Now that's also something to note, is once you start attaching cables, be careful so that it doesn't yank, someone doesn't trip on the cable and yanks the camera off the tripod potentially. That can really damage the whole camera, the unit, and the cables itself. Okay, so continuing on, I would then use another XLR cable. So, this kind of an XLR cable. So it has the male and female. So the female end is going to go to the mic here. So I'm going to just plug that in. Okay, and same thing with these ones. If you're, when you're unplugging these, let me just get this a bit closer here. Right, so that plugs in right there. So you just push down on this lever, right? And then we're just putting this end to this end, and you can see how it lines up. 3 pins, 3 pins, and we go click, and that's attached. Again, push down to release, right? And then I'm going to put it back in together, right? The 3 to 3, perfect. So that's the one end of the mic. And now what I need to do is also attach. Sorry, I just got a little bit of a cable strap here. Then I'm going to do also is attach the mini XLR adapters already plugged in. So then I got this. The last two pieces is this and this. Same idea. You can see how 3 to 3. Okay, and it's going to go like this. Click in, right? And then again, to release, I would merely just push down and then they slide out. If you don't push down on that, it will stay plugged in and it's locked. So that's a safety lock so that things don't get disconnected by accident while you're trying to record some sound. Okay, so that's all we need to do to connect that mic. Now, what we do is we have, I'm going to go to a wider shot over here. So we have this mic like so, right? And so, you know, now I have the cable attached. It goes into here, right? And then from there, I'm ready to record. So I have everything attached. Let me just spin this camera around and I'll show you guys the input settings for the boom mic. So let's just rock focus over to that. Okay, so we still have the lav mic set up here. Okay, and then here it says camera mono, right? So that's still the internal, the front microphone's there, right? So you can see if I'm tapping on the microphone, it's getting a bit of a click there. Okay, so what we need to do is we're gonna actually have to, and here, let me just get this cable loose here for a sec. I've got a little bit of a wrapped up cable. One thing too is I have a pretty short cable and we have like 25-foot cables and they're not really long. So you want to not have massively long XLR cables. So try to use as short as you need. So try to just use, you know, like the 25-foot. You can also look at getting longer cables if you need a longer run. But again, only use what you need. So that's always a good piece of advice. Now, to get the microphone going, I'm now going to go to XLR. Oops. Right up here to XLR, and it says line, so we don't need line. What we need to do is XLR mic, and you can see right now, check, 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 tap, tap, tap. There's nothing happening with the mic. That's because this requires phantom power. Where is the phantom power? So I'm going to go to this next page right here, so you can scroll menu to menu. You see it says XLR phantom power. So always make sure that that's required. So, and it is with this microphone. You saw that it didn't work. I'm going to turn it on. Now I'm going to go back, check, 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 and there you go. We have power. Then I use the levels here to adjust until I get to a nice yellow without going into the red zone. Check, check, check. That's pretty good. You can see they're almost the same kind of level, the lav to the boom mic. They're going to be different. You can see the boom is about 63% because it's a lot more directional and the lav mic is less. Now, if I move the boom further away, it's going to go lower, so you might need to increase that level. So this is what's always called leveling in terms of getting those levels set up and moving around. So I'm just going to get up here to move around a little bit, but you can see how this keeps, you know, everything working in terms of you know, how the levels and how everything can work. Okay, perfect. So check, 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 check 1, 2, check, 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 check 1, 2, right? So you can see that the levels are working really well. Okay, and I'm just getting this other camera ready so we can do the wide shot. Perfect. Okay, so that camera is ready. Check, check, 1, 2, check, check. Now the boom mic is further away. Now it's closer. Check, 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 1, 2. Okay, so that's our setup for using the actual Blackmagic camera. So that's like our first step there. So now, here we go. Here's the wide shot. That's a little bit better now. So now, again, so we have this microphone. Now what we can do too is we have what's called a boom pole. So this just threads in together, and that just screws in together. And here, let me just go to the closer shot. So that's actually it right there. So you can see there's a bit of a thread here. There's a thread there, and that's going to just screw right into the bottom there. So I'm just going to take that, spin it in. Just on a bit of an angle, so make sure it's nice and straight. Now it just needs enough so that it's not loose, right? So we just want that to be snug enough, right? So that's it, it's attached, right? And there's always some sort of a mount, so like a shock, this is a shock mount, there's like rubber bands to keep it from moving around too much. So that's important too. And that's it. So now we have it on a boom pole. What does this mean? So while we're on a boom pole, we can now use it to boom around, and you do something that's called boom operating. So I can just open these, I can extend them. And then what I suggest is always doing like a first wrap around the boom pole, like so. And then I just keep twisting the cable around so that it's not too loose. Right? You can see it. And then now I'm ready to essentially boom. Okay? And we'll talk again about this a bit later, but this is exactly that first setup going into the camera. Okay, so let's continue on. Sound recording, mic or line input. So this is just something that we covered in an earlier session, but just wanted to touch on this quickly today. So most devices either have that mic or line input, and we saw that with the camera. We specifically always have that option, and you can see that it says here mic, right? And we also have the option to do a line. So what does that really mean, mic or line levels? So the mic level is a rather low energy source, and the line level is electronically or digitally created, so it's louder as a result. So the microphone is just taking my voice or the sounds of nature or sounds of analog instruments, so microphoning a drum set, vocals, that kind of idea for music. And then the line level is something that's electronic. So line levels are usually like keyboard, electronic drums, headphones are line level, and that's a good way to think about it. So mics being microphones, line input can be instruments, electronic devices, like an iPod comes out as a line level because it's a headphone line level. And so it already has like a preamplification, whereas the mic is really low, and that's going to be a big difference. Typically, here's kind of a nice rule of thumb. If it's a 1/4 inch input, it's usually a line, and an XLR input is usually a mic. But that's not always the case. That's just a rule when you're getting different inputs and cables, what it could mean, right? So I'm not saying that that's absolute, but it could be. So this is that 1/4 inch type cable. Let me just rock to it. So this is a 1/4 inch cable that you'd typically find, guitar amps, keyboards, that kind of an idea. So that would usually be a line versus a mic, right? So that's just something to think about in terms of trying to figure out, what are we using? Is it a mic or a line? So I just wanted to touch on that. What does that mean? What we're doing right now, all of our microphones that we're using are microphones. So they're all operated as microphone level, lav microphone, boom microphone, right? They're both microphones. So that's an important thing to remember when you're miking up the Blackmagic Pocket cinema camera. Okay, so now let's get to the next part here. So digital sound recording settings, best practices. Now this is in your can be in the camera. It can also be in the sound recorder. So I know we didn't talk a lot about it today, but I just wanted let's just touch on that quickly. So, if we're doing like a double system idea, we would have, this is a Tascam DR40, so it's a 4-channel recorder, and it's similar to the Zoom H4N, and I'll get to a graphic on that, that's available through the libraries to take out. So these are digital recorders, so rather than using the camera input directly, this would be the double system, where you're just getting picture with the camera, and then you're recording just your sound on this. Now, the advantages of doing double system, first of all, is that you can see right away, if I have to be in here doing camera adjustments of sound levels, how do you also operate the camera effectively? So you're somewhat limiting what you can do with your camera work if you're also worried about the sound work, right? So that's one really important factor. If I'm then using the sound recorder, that sound recorder is my own leveling and my own work there. Okay, so here's the kind of the best practices. So there's some different formats that might be available. So what you want to do, the best practices are to use WAV format files. Now this is not, instead of an MP3, I say it should be a WAV. Now some recorders might have an MP3 option. Definitely you don't want to do that because it's a highly, highly compressed format versus a less compressed or even uncompressed format like WAV can be. So the WAV file format takes a lot more space, but that's really what you want for your sound recording. Most cameras, like the Blackmagic Pocket camera, in terms of its settings and how it records, is in a WAV format. And there are some options. I'm just looking where the actual audio options are in here. Yeah, so by default, this does record in WAV format, and it's PCM, pulse code modulation. So that's one style that a camera can use. So it's basically, that one's good to go. Where it's more important to deal with is on sound recorders, where you'll have the option of what is it recording, and what kind of format does it record. So here, for example, you would go to the menu, and here's kind of a quick way to see that you're doing the right thing. So let me just cut over to this camera. So here's the menu for this task cam, right? And you can see it says broadcast wave, 24-bit, 48 kilohertz. So I'll just get a little bit closer there. Less of a glare. This way, there we go. Okay, so hopefully you guys can just see that there. Maybe I'll get a little more light. There we go, that's nicer. Okay, so it's, right, 24-bit, 48 kilohertz sample rate. So that's important in the record settings that any sound recorder can be set up as. So that's what we want to always first do, is be able to set it up that way. Now, just like the camera, it has XLR inputs on the bottom here. So these can take 1/4 inch or XLR, right? That's great. And you can see right here in the middle, I know it's a little bit dark in this lighting here, but in the middle, zoom into that or focus on that. Okay, so here's an external mic line in. So I can do a 1/8 inch directly into it, right? And what that will do is that's where I can put the Rode Wireless Go. And the Zoom H4N has a similar setting to that. So there's a video we did on that, so you can check out our YouTube channel. It goes over exactly how to set that up. So then that's the same idea you do a double system, is that we put the XLR cable for the boom mic. So this cable would go directly into here, right? And then the Wireless Go would go into the 1/8 inch input right there. And then it's ready to go that way, right? So besides that, the what's great is that once you have these settings, I did make a note here in case your camera, if you're using another camera, if you can't get 48 kilohertz, you can always use 44.1. And if you can't use 24-bit, you can always use 16-bit. It's not the end of the world, but then we can always convert this in editing to bring it up to the other specs. So just a quick overview of what's really needed for the specs of recording. Okay, so Slate overview for double system. How do we use a Slate? And I think this is a really important thing, is that the Slate has all this information that can be on it. So you can put the scene number, the take, the date, and then also whether it's day or night. And that's really a great option in terms of what can be achieved. I'm just going to bring this text up a bit because I notice it's getting cut off there. Let's go back to there. Okay, perfect. So by having all that information, it's also a catalog of the shot you're doing. So the Slate has that really important information as well. The top line, you should always put the name of the production that you're working on so you can identify what it is. So, if you're filming something about, the snow in Beaver Valley, you want to put that and say, Beaver Valley snow film. If you're doing a documentary on, chocolate fudge, you want to put, chocolate fudge documentary. So whatever you're doing, put the name of it so you can identify. So that's really important. And then also the scene and the take. So if it's a narrative film and there's a script, you want to identify everything with it. So here's the following steps. So basically we start recording sound speed is set, start recording picture speed is set. Then we state what is on the Slate. So usually you say, chocolate fudge, scene 1, take 1. And then when the clapper's open, we state marker, and then you clap down and keep the clapper closed. The scene would then start, either, if there's a documentary, you can do an action and say, start doing the interview, asking questions. If it's action, the actors would start doing the scene, acting it out. Or if it's an action cue for, let's say, a skier going down the hill, they would start skiing down the hill. Then you would do a cut. At that point, you would stop the sound and picture recording, and you keep repeating this. And that's basically how the day goes. So that's double system. Now what's important to remember is with double system is this is just kind of the Slate. So you see the name, Shadow House was the name of a film. You can put different information here, really handy. So you can get, a lot of these Slates are not too expensive. You can get them different online platforms to purchase. So again, what would be said is I would say, record sound, and then whoever's recording sound would say sound speed. That's the sound recordist. They're also monitoring the levels. Then you would say roll picture, and then the camera operator or cinematographer would say picture speed. Then you say what's happening. So I'd say Shadow House, scene 1, take 1. Then before I just clap it, so you can see how this is open. And then before I say that, I always recommend if you say marker, then you see it clap down, and I keep it closed. Right, marker, and then that way in editing you know that it's about to do that clap. If you say marker, it's kind of like a pre-warning that the marker is happening. Again, then action, cut, and then you redo it again. So the Slate's really important to keep it in the shot. So a Slate down here, that's not going to help. I can't see it where it closes. Same like if it's over here, it doesn't help, and so on. So it needs to be right in the shot, and kind of right in the middle is nice, and it stays open. Then you can see if it's closed and I go marker, it's a lot harder in editing to know when that happens. You got to find it, right? There's also a tendency sometimes to go, and then you have to find just where it closes. So we want to just keep it open the entire time until we're synchronizing the marker. So marker, and it stays closed. And then it's easy to find. It's easy to know that it's open and closed and there's no issue. If I go really fast, I might not even have it closed long enough to pick that up in editing. So those are just some of the best practices with the Slate. And that's why we use a Slate. So sometimes it looks, hey, this looks like fun, but it's actually really practical to allow the sound from here to match up to the picture recorded on the camera, right? If we're going right into camera, double system isn't happening anymore. So you're already synchronized. So that audio, the mics that I'm talking to right now, is directly recorded into the camera. So you're already synchronized. So you're not doing the whole, double system where you need, you're having this plus microphone plus slates and everything, right? So by doing those two, this is double system you need for if you're doing camera sound recorder. Otherwise, if you're just doing it into the camera, you just record on the camera. So sound and camera speed would be the same. You can still use a slate for identification. It's a really great way to identify and log your materials as you go when you're filming. Okay, so that's the double system explained and how the slate works. So the Zoom H4N sound recorder. So I was demoing here with the Tascam DR40. There's different sound recorders. So the Zoom H4N has a little bit more features and functions than the DR40. It's available through our library partners through the equipment access. So you can take it out. All that you need to do is do an online proficiency test. You can go to our website and do that. And you also need a valid library card for wherever the equipment is. So right now it's available at the Blue Mountains Public Library. So if you have a valid card there, you can take out these microphones, camera, and Zoom recorder. It's also coming soon to Wasaga Beach, and there'll be equipment at Collingwood Public Library as well in the spring. So really exciting. So the recorder allows you to adjust and record each level, 4 channels, similar to the DR40 that you can plug in the XLR, you can plug in the Rode in the 1/8 inch, and this system can be used as a double system sound recorder for picture. So with doing picture and sound, so you can keep it as double system. So, it's a great recorder. Again, we have videos. If you do the online proficiency test, tbmcs.ca, you can then access all the videos that explain everything that help you get through the proficiency test, but it's also a great way to learn about the recorder. So please do check that out, and also you can link to our YouTube channel through our website. Now, again, going back to the double system idea, if we have double system, another thing I should point out is that you need one more person. It only helps to have double system if you have someone that can record sound and someone that can operate the camera. If it's just going to be you, just a one-person show recording everything, then it's really beneficial to just do it as an in-camera versus double system. So that's another aspect to think about is to, if you're just going to be one person, you don't need to have double system. It's hard to do double system because then you're actually adding extra work instead of helping improve your camera. You now have to monitor sound and you have to monitor your camera as well if you're one person. The other thing to think about is if you do it all in camera setups, the boom and a Rode wireless mic, for example, you are then ready to edit. You take the footage, you can bring it in for editing, and then you're ready to edit. So that's another advantage of going right into camera versus having to then synchronize it. There's some other things too, different pieces of equipment. Some of it can have external time code. So the time code can be linked to cameras and the recorders. So there's some more advanced sound recorders out there as well that you might get into and experience. Or maybe you have a sound recorder that has time code. If that's the case, you can actually synchronize it with the Blackmagic camera because it can take external time code. It's one of the options as well. And then the time code is actually what can help synchronize as well. But then I would still recommend doing the slate plus having the time code as a extra way, but the slate is still a backup in case the time code isn't accurate or something happens. Okay, so boom operating best practices. I touched on this a little bit earlier, and we'll wrap it up with this. So you want to keep the mic pointed at the desired sound source, so it's actor subject. You don't want it to be off axis, so pointing it towards the subject from the side is going to pick up what's beside the person. So you kind of want the source to be the end final destination of sound versus, cross axis where it picks up. If it's noisy, I know I have some fan noises here. You guys can probably hear them from computers running. Those fan noises, again, can be reduced by going a bit off axis, changing the axis of the boom mic. So find what's clean. You want to maintain a close distance without getting the microphone in the shot or the camera. So here's a good example. So I have the microphone here. So obviously right now you can see it in the shot. If I have it right here, it's pointing at me, right? And I'll go to this shot over here so you can see that's kind of where it is, right? So it's pointing at me, right? But you don't see it in this shot, right? So you don't see it, but slowly there you see it, and that's what's called, it's coming, boom's coming into the frame, right? So you want to always avoid the boom coming into the frame. So just out of the frame and then bringing it down. Okay, that's in the frame, bringing it back up to clear, and then it just stays pointed at me. So I'm just trying to give you guys kind of see how it's like pointed at me at the mouth as so, right? So that's a really great way. So again, it's out of the shot, and then we have the boom is good. Now the other thing, and I think I did mention this before. So I always suggest is wrapping the cable around the boom pole, right? So what I like to do is keep a little bit of slack here, so it's not tugging on it, right? So we have the mic in there, a little bit of a slug here, slack I should say, so that it's not tight. Then I wrap it around, and that way it's not making any cable sounds, right, as I move it. So it's just, it's staying pretty good. Okay, and then that's what we want to do, is wrap the cable around the boom. Keep your arms bent at 90 degrees and stay comfortable. So this is kind of the idea of having a boom operating, is to just keep your arms like so. And then what I like to do is the back, I can kind of raise it up or down. So that kind of uses the pivot. By staying at 90 degrees, it's pretty comfortable. I can hold this for quite a long time without feeling uncomfortable. If you hold it like this, you start to get really tired if you're kind of putting it on one hand only to hold everything. But if you're 90 degrees over, that way you're already above the person talking. And again, you can use the back hand to pivot up or down. So that's what I really recommend, is you can see I can pivot up or down with the boom mic. So just a nice right angle, and then again, as close and pointed at your subject. So that's what I highly, highly recommend for that. If it's going to be a long interview, the best thing at the end of the day is still, can you put it on some sort of a stand? So there's different mic stands. We have some at the Blue Mountains Public Library. There's like some instrument mic stands that can be used to set up. Now the other thing is, because it's on a cable, it really doesn't hurt this microphone if you hang it from this cable. It could hang, there's nothing bad's gonna happen to it. So you could technically hang it if you clipped it, if you can clip it off a light or off the ceiling, have it come down, and that can save you or your sound recordist or boom operator a lot of pain if you're doing a 1 hour or 2 hour interview. And rather than holding the microphone for 2 hours, which would get really tiring, try to attach it somewhere, put it on a stand, and like I mentioned, you can always have it from below. So if you can put it on even using the boom stand, you can use a pony clip or something, like a hardware storage type of clip, clamp it onto something or by a table, point it at the person, and then you can attach it that way. Right, so that's the one thing there. Now, if the boom mic is causing a lot of stress for a long interview, then just use the lav. If you don't have someone that can operate it or a way to connect that microphone, you can just use the lav only, and then don't worry about it. And there's options too. You can technically connect things. There's a screw mounts to the top of the camera, so you could thread, do some sort of connections like that too. So if you have some hardware available, you might want to use what you have for connecting things too. Okay, so perfect. Yeah, that pretty much takes us through everything. So yeah, I'm gonna just open it up for a Q&A. We have a few minutes left here. You can rewatch this through Crowdcast here, and we'll post it on our YouTube channel as well. We'll add it to our sound recording and digital video sections, so you can rewatch it there. So by registering on Crowdcast, you can rewatch this right after we're done. And here, let's have a look at some questions, see what questions people have. Okay, so the optimal settings for a digital recorder, is you want to have basically 48 kilohertz is the sample rate, 24-bit, and using a broadcast or wave file. So it's usually BW, broadcast wave file. BWF is a lot of sound recorders have, or just a wave file. So wave, 24-bit depth, 48 kilohertz sample rate. So that's the optimum. What is the range on the lav? Another person asks. Camera to subject. Very good question. It's been tested at 75 feet is, I believe, what the tech specs say. I say probably half of that is in a good range where it will work. So if you're about, you know, let's say 25 feet, you know, 8 to 10 meters away from the subject at most, that's good. So they're not really a super long range lav, but they're, you know, long enough that the convenience of not having to plug a cable in is great. So that's, I guess, the big advantage I should mention too is, you know, versus you know, the boom mics that have cable, right? These wireless are great because now we have no wires on the ground or between the subjects. So that's also a really great thing to have. So I hope that helped answer that. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions here. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, I think that's pretty good. I think, you know, thanks again. We've covered a lot of really great information, and you know, want to definitely encourage everyone to check out what's available through our library partners to access this equipment. Really great equipment that you can also look at getting. Again, everything that we have in the library are, you know, we call them Indie Pro low-cost solutions. So these aren't, you know, $2,000 mics. These are, you know, about $250 or so for the Rode, and it's about $170 for the Superlux. So very affordable microphones that you might want to pick up as well. But the great thing is that you have access to this through the library partners. So definitely check that out. So yeah, let's continue the conversation in the sound world and digital video. Thanks again for joining us. My name is Tom Strnad. I'm the lead digital artist of the Creator Space, and definitely check out our website and events.tbmcs.ca for more up and coming programs, webinars, workshops that will be happening. So again, thanks to all our partners: Canada Council for the Arts, library partners, Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library, and yeah, I'll put in the URL right now as well, and we'll sign off from there. So again, thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.